Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
After listening to today's news, you'll know, first, Baidu's $1.1 billion AI chip sales challenge Huawei, capitalizing on the market void left by US sanctions on Nvidia. We'll analyze why this geopolitical bet creates a captive market and how its inference-first chips could create a performance ceiling for China's AI. Second, Anduril's battle-ready drones crash in US tests, questioning its $30.5 billion valuation and Silicon Valley's defense tech hype. So we'll discuss why these failures expose a clash between startup hype and military reality and what it means for defense procurement. Third, a new study reveals X's algorithm can create 3 years of polarization in 1 week, exposing a polarization dial. We'll examine how this creates a conflict between user engagement and societal harm, impacting platforms under new EU regulations. Fourth, navies are outsourcing anti-submarine warfare, hiring private tech firms to operate autonomous hunter-killer drones as a service. In this episode, we'll break down this new defense model and what it signals for international law when private armed drones become military targets. Fifth, Vietnam pivots to Huawei for 5G after US tariffs, challenging Washington's tech containment strategy in Southeast Asia. We'll explore how this strategy blurs the line between a network's secure core and its edge, creating an integration nightmare for Western partners. Let's start with a single statistic that might just change your entire perspective on this company. A firm best known for its search engine just saw its chip sales forecast to increase 6-fold to over $1 billion. That company is Baidu, and it's making a massive play in the high-stakes AI chip war, positioning itself as a challenger to Huawei. What's interesting is that this isn't just about selling chips. This is part of Baidu's full-stack AI strategy. Because of the US sanctions, they've been forced to build everything themselves, from the chips up to the cloud services and the AI models. This vertical integration is a massive gamble. It could create a powerful, self-reliant ecosystem, or it could spread them too thin. A while back, we talked about the bullwhip effect hitting AI components, especially high bandwidth memory. That panic ordering and underinvestment hangover are exactly why Baidu is doubling down on building the stack itself. When HBM is scarce, controlling more of the pipeline becomes a survival strategy. The core of the conflict is a void left by industry leader Nvidia, which has been blocked by the US government from selling its top-end chips to China, with reports that Beijing is now persuading local companies to reject even Nvidia's less powerful export-approved chips. The race for a domestic alternative is officially on. Continuing our last discussion on supply, remember this isn't only a sanctions story. The global HBM squeeze we highlighted has turned a tight market into a crunch, and for China it's a double whammy. Restricted access to top-end GPUs, plus pricier, harder to get memory. But domestic alternative doesn't mean it's a simple one-for-one replacement. Actually, there's a huge performance difference. Nvidia's chips are the gold standard for training times massive AI models, the kind of heavy lifting you need to create the next GPT-4. Baidu's Kunlun chips, on the other hand, are primarily designed for what's called inference. That's the process of times running, times an already trained model. So while these chips are good enough for many day-to-day AI tasks, they might create a permanent performance ceiling for China, making it much harder for them to build the next generation of truly cutting-edge AI from scratch. We previously analyzed how training soaks up HBM. That's the pinch point. So the tilt toward inference-first chips like Kunlun isn't just design preference, it sidesteps the worst of the training era memory pain, even if it reinforces that performance ceiling. And the numbers are staggering. Investment bank analysts forecast Baidu's chip sales will reach $1.1 billion by 2026, and the valuations are getting into wild territory, with analysts at Macquarie estimating that Baidu's Kunlun chip unit could be valued at about $28 billion on its own. One caveat we flagged a while back, TrendForce expects a robust upward pricing cycle for memory into at least 2026. If that holds, Baidu's chip economics will be riding not just demand, but elevated component costs. You have to understand this massive valuation isn't just a bet on Baidu's technology, it's a bet on sustained US-China tech friction. Essentially, investors are assuming that the US sanctions will stay in place, creating a protected, semi-captive market for Baidu's chips inside China. It's a geopolitical investment. The biggest risk here isn't that the chips fail, it's that relations improve. If a new US administration were to ease sanctions, Baidu's market advantage could evaporate almost overnight. This isn't just an opportunity, it's a necessity born from a crisis. The AI chip shortage in China is hitting hard. The CEO of Alibaba recently called the supply side a large bottleneck. Tencent's president admitted the company's spending is down, not from a lack of demand, but from a shortage of available chips. These titans of tech are scrambling for computing power. That lines up with what we discussed. Memory vendors have pricing power for now, and downstream buyers are the ones eating higher costs. So what's the real end game here? Baidu is already securing major orders from giants like China, Mobile. As one expert at the Futurum Group puts it, there is now a multi-billion-dollar domestic market for AI hardware. If Baidu can ship its chips on time, it doesn't just solve its own supply problem. It becomes a strategic supplier to the rest of China's AI industry. But that phrase on time is doing a lot of work. Now get this, Baidu can design these advanced chips, but the real challenge is who can manufacture them. China's top chip factory, SMIC, is still years behind global leaders like Taiwan's TSMC. We're talking 7 nanometer technology versus 3 nanometer or even 2 nanometer. That tech gap means any chips produced domestically will likely have a severe performance and efficiency penalty. This is the manufacturing bottleneck, and it's a massive hurdle for Baidu's entire plan. A while back, we noted SMIC's leadership saying customers were hesitant to place orders because they couldn't forecast what the electronic supply chain would actually deliver. That's the bullwhip effect in action, and it complicates Baidu's on-time promise. So while Baidu is racing to fill a critical hardware gap in China, another high-flying tech company is finding out that building hardware for the military is a much tougher game. A drone from one of Silicon Valley's hottest defense companies, Anduril Industries, just nosedived 8,000 feet straight into the ground during a US Air Force test. Shortly after, a second drone from the same company also spiraled to Earth. This is a bombshell for a company with a staggering $30.5 billion valuation, which has been pushing its drones as battle ready. This is where the situation takes a more complex turn. That massive valuation is driven by a venture capital model that rewards rapid growth and bold claims, creating a huge disconnect between investor hype and actual reliability. Anduril's gross margins are reportedly 40 to 45%, which is huge compared to traditional defense contractors. But what happens when that Silicon Valley mindset collides with the harsh realities of military performance standards? We might be seeing that collision right now. A while back, we walked through how the war set off a drone gold rush. The latest development is that one of the most hyped entrants is now being stress tested in public. The founder, Palmer Luckey, even claimed their LTS drones have taken out hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Russian targets. But these crashes highlight a major gap between the marketing and reality, and the problems don't stop with testing failures. On the battlefields of Ukraine, Anduril's Ghost drone system reportedly struggled against Russian electronic warfare, frustrating soldiers on the ground. Now, Russian electronic warfare, or EW, is incredibly sophisticated. It involves powerful jamming that can block a drone's GPS signal, essentially making it blind and deaf, or even spoofing it with false location data. To counter this, Western firms are racing to develop drones that don't rely on GPS, using things like internal navigation systems or advanced AI. But it's a constant cat and mouse game. This EW pressure cooker is exactly what's pushing vendors into GPS-denied navigation and smarter onboard decision-making. The company sent about 40 of the initial models, but a source with direct knowledge said they misunderstood how Russia's jamming could derail the drones. Believe it or not, there's more. In another incident, a video from a US Army exercise in Germany shows an updated Ghost X model spinning out of control and crash landing near soldiers. An unidentified person in the video can be heard saying, "I told you this would be a clusterfuck." Anduril calls these failures isolated examples and a natural part of the development process. This is a classic Silicon Valley playbook, a move fast and break things philosophy. The idea is to innovate through rapid prototyping, accepting failures as learning opportunities. This is the complete opposite of the Pentagon's traditional risk-averse culture. So while Anduril frames this as radical transparency, it raises a huge question. Is this a genuine new era for the defense industry or a sophisticated PR strategy to normalize product flaws? We previously analyzed how players are racing on both sides of this ledger-building attack drones and the systems to stop them. Today's incidents make that strategic tension feel a lot less theoretical. But perhaps the most telling fact is this. On the very same day the LTS drone nosedived during the Air Force test, the Pentagon announced another purchase of the drones for up to $50 million. Despite the hype around Western tech, the real impact on the ground tells a different story. A Ukrainian deputy prime minister stated that of 1 million drones deployed to the front lines in a year, 96% were Ukrainian made. This isn't just about patriotism, it's about a fundamental mismatch in strategy. The war in Ukraine is a war of attrition, and you need massive quantities of cheap disposable assets. Ukrainian-made FPV drones can cost as little as $500. By early 2025, they were reportedly producing 200,000 of them per month. These cheaper, locally made models are battlefield proven and can be adapted so quickly based on real-world combat data. A while back, we highlighted how Ukraine went from a handful of manufacturers to an ecosystem of hundreds. Today's update reinforces that point. In a fight where volume and rapid adaptation win, an expensive, exquisite Western drone that fails is a much bigger loss. The failures of Anduril's drones highlight a serious clash between tech hype and reality, but the impact of tech isn't always so physically explosive. Sometimes it's far more subtle. A new study, for instance, has uncovered a method that can create 3 years of political polarization in just one single week. The bombshell study, published in the journal Science, was conducted on the social media platform X during the 2024 US presidential election. Researchers found that by making subtle changes to a user's For You feed, they could drastically accelerate division. The fascinating part is how they did it. The researchers built what are called social bots, automated accounts that could interact with the platform just like a real user. These bots allowed them to analyze and even modify a user's live feed in real time, a capability usually exclusive to the platform itself. This is a huge deal because it moves beyond just observing what happens on social media to actively intervening. Here's how it worked. Academics slightly boosted the amount of anti-democratic and partisan content shown to a group of over 1,000 users. The result was a massive spike in their unfavorable feelings toward the other side. This isn't just about disagreeing on policy. This is what researchers call affective polarization. It's that us versus them feeling the emotional dislike and distrust of people from the other political party. And that's what's so corrosive to a functioning society. But the most stunning part is that the change was so small, most users didn't even notice their feeds had been altered. One co-author, Tiziano Picardi, stated the shift in political animosity they measured in 1 week corresponds to roughly 3 years of polarization based on historical US trends. Think about that for a second. 3 years of division cooked up in 7 days. It suggests the existence of a polarization dial. If science can turn it up this fast, what stops a platform owner, a rogue employee, or a foreign state from weaponizing that same dial for political gain or just to make more money? The potential for manipulation is staggering. This all happened after Elon Musk acquired the platform and introduced the For You feed, which uses an algorithm to maximize user engagement. Another researcher on the project, Martin Savesky, said the findings demonstrate the sheer power of the algorithm. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer to this. The study also found the reverse is true. By subtly downranking divisive content, the platform can significantly reduce political animosity. This suggests X has the power to either fuel the fire or put it out. This is the hopeful twist in this story. The same tool that drives us apart can also be used to bring us closer together. So what's the catch? The research points to a critical trade-off. While reducing divisive content did decrease polarization, it also led to a slight reduction in overall engagement, the very metric that drives the platform's business model. Interestingly enough, this isn't a new problem. Remember when Meta tried to promote what they called meaningful social interactions back in 2018? The goal was to prioritize content that fostered genuine connection, but it backfired. The algorithm discovered that the most engaging content was often the most angry and divisive. This new study confirms that fundamental conflict. What's good for society might be bad for business, at least in the short term. This study isn't just an academic exercise. It provides a direct causal link between an algorithm's choices and societal harm, and that gives regulators real teeth. For example, the European Union's Digital Services Act now requires very large online platforms to undergo independent audits to assess their risks to society. The methods used in this very study could become the blueprint for how we hold these powerful companies accountable. We were just talking about the power of algorithms to shape society. Now, let's shift our focus to how algorithms and autonomy are reshaping physical warfare. This time, deep beneath the waves, navies are about to outsource anti-submarine warfare to private companies, arming them with fleets of autonomous ghost submarines. A new arms race is exploding underwater, pitting traditional defense giants like Before Anyone Else Systems and Boeing against agile tech startups like Anduril. At stake is a massive new market for uncrewed underwater vehicles. Australia has already committed $1.7 billion for its Ghost Shark submarines, while the US Navy is pouring billions into its own secret projects. The reason startups like Anduril are even in this fight is because their real advantage is a completely different business model focused on agile software and AI. They build platforms like Anduril's Lattice system that fuse data from all kinds of sensors into one real-time picture. And they do it fast, bypassing the slow, traditional military procurement cycles that can take decades. The reason for the radical shift is what one Before Anyone Else Systems executive calls a genuine step change in the underwater battle space. These drones allow navies to scale up their forces at a fraction of the cost of manned submarines. But creating a network of these drones on the seabed is not like building a satellite network like Starlink in space. The underwater environment is one of the most difficult places to communicate. Instead of radio waves, these drones have to use acoustic signals, basically sound. And sound moves through water at only about 1,500 meters per second, which means data rates are incredibly low and delays are huge. It's a massive technical challenge to get these things to talk to each other reliably, let alone coordinate a hunt. Their mission is to hunt increasingly quiet enemy subs and guard critical infrastructure. Our economy depends on like the 60 undersea data and energy cables around the British Isles, where damage could have devastating consequences. The threat is escalating. The UK has seen a 30% increase in Russian vessels threatening its waters in just the last 2 years. In response, the Royal Navy is pioneering a new model it calls anti-submarine warfare as a service, essentially treating naval defense like a software subscription. What really brought this to a head was the next development. This new technology is a double-edged sword. While it makes tracking rivals easier, it also makes sabotage cheaper. This isn't just a technology for superpowers anymore. The global market for these underwater drones is projected to more than double to over $4 billion by 2025, and reports show over 50 countries are already developing or buying them. This lowers the barrier for smaller nations or even non-state actors to get their hands on offensive capabilities for untraceable attacks. An industry executive warns that the prospect of drones firing on one another underwater is now absolutely realistic. This is important because we are entering a massive legal and ethical grey zone. Under international law, like the Geneva Conventions, these private contractors are often classified as civilians. So what happens when a private company's autonomous drone makes a mistake and sparks an international conflict? Who is liable? The company? The country that hired them? So the thing is, nobody has a clear answer. And as a director at defence firm Thalers UK bluntly predicts, the moment these systems go live, the first thing the Russians will do is go out and test this and push it. That legal grey zone for autonomous weapons is a huge strategic headache for navies. Speaking of which, a fascinating geopolitical drama is playing out in Southeast Asia, where Vietnam just made a move that sent a shockwave straight to Washington. For years, Vietnam was seen as a key partner in resisting Chinese technology. But after the US hit Vietnam with tariffs, the tables have turned dramatically. State-owned operators in Vietnam have started awarding major 5G contracts to China's leading telecom giants, Huawei and ZTE. And we're talking real money. A consortium including Huawei landed a $23 million contract for 5G equipment just weeks after the White House announced tariffs on Vietnamese goods. ZTE has secured at least 2 contracts totaling more than $20 million for 5G antennas, with the first publicly disclosed deal coming just 1 month after US tariffs officially took effect. One person at Vietnam's main army-owned telecom operator, Viettel, said it plainly, Chinese technology is cheaper. This isn't just a simple economic decision, though. It's a masterful piece of what experts call bamboo diplomacy. The idea is that Vietnam is acting like bamboo, strong and rooted, but flexible enough to bend in the wind without breaking. By engaging with both the US and China, Vietnam is leveraging their rivalry to get the best deals and technology from all sides, all while maintaining its own strategic independence. While the cheaper price tag is attractive now, it comes with a massive potential risk down the road. Just look at the United Kingdom. After initially using Huawei gear, the UK mandated a full rip and replace due to security concerns. The cost for a single operator, British Telecom, is estimated to be around £500 million. For a developing economy like Vietnam, a forced removal of this equipment in the future could be financially devastating. This move directly challenges years of American pressure. Washington has long identified the exclusion of Chinese contractors from Vietnam's digital infrastructure as a key condition for its support. Now, Western officials are sounding the alarm. In a recent meeting, a US official delivered a stark warning. These deals could undermine trust in Vietnam's networks and jeopardize the country's access to US advanced technology. And the situation extends beyond just 5G. Hanoi and Beijing are also making progress on other sensitive projects like cross-border rail links and special economic zones that Vietnam had previously dismissed over security risks. It signals a major strategic pivot. This decision brings both benefits, like cheaper tech, and comes with inherent risks, like setting up the awkward prospect of Western contractors having to work directly alongside Chinese firms they do not trust. This is more than just an uncomfortable partnership. The entire security strategy rests on separating a sensitive core of the network from a less sensitive edge, like antennas. But in modern 5G networks, that distinction is rapidly disappearing. The edge of the network is becoming more intelligent. The antennas and base stations aren't just dumb receivers anymore. They are sophisticated computers processing huge amounts of data. This means a vulnerability in an antenna could potentially become a backdoor into the entire network. The strategy relies on creating virtual, separate lanes on the same shared infrastructure, but experts warn it's incredibly difficult to guarantee those lanes are perfectly sealed. This is the technical nightmare that keeps security officials up at night, and it puts Western firms in an impossible position.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.